Welcome back to Forecast Sports, where today I, William, will be going through some transfer news with Enzo Maresca moving to Manchester City, plus Newcastle set up after Gordon has gone to Barcelona, plus Andoni Iraola's move to Liverpool, and a lot more transfer talk to come. Enzo Maresca is off to Manchester City after Pep's departure, but not much will change, I believe, and this is because they have been working together in the past for Manchester City and they play very similar styles. So we may see a similar Manchester City side despite completely different managers. Now, this deal for Enzo Maresca is a 3-year deal. So, of course, this means it's a mid sort of range deal, and they don't often mean a lot. So, that won't give us any hints of how long he is looking to stay. But with this move, Enzo Maresca will be bringing a big sorting out for Manchester City, because he will still want his own players to be in that side. So we could see a lot of transfers within the summer window for Manchester City. This, though, is a well-timed signing for Manchester City because it'll bring a lot of time for him to work out where the players are at. Yes, they're at the World Cup, but who he wants in the team, and the World Cup is the perfect time to look for signings for his side. So, couldn't be better time, this signing of Enzo Maresca, but there's a lot to come for him over the next few months. Now, Enzo Maresca, he started out as the manager of the Manchester City Elite Development Squad. So he has been in the environment before, as I said before, under Pep. And then he moved to Parma for 6 months before he was sacked. And then he went to Leicester City, where he won championship promotion in his only season there. And then he moved to Chelsea, where, of course, he won multiple cups, including the massive Club World Cup. Now, how he worked at Leicester was he ran in a sort of 4-3-3 formation, or 4-1-4-1, with speedy wingers down the lines and who used the width of the field well for them. And they had a single pivot engine who was working the hardest of all their players to hold that defence but also transition into attack. Now, he also had one of the key points for this team success was their playmaker, Dewsbury Hall, who is now at Everton and performing emphatically. Now, what was so good about Dewsbury Hall was he could just make so much happen, and he was given license to move. Now, with this 4-1-4-1 formation, it's sort of, you have those two attacking midfielders, which is of Dewsbury Hall's stature, and then another player, and they were able to just put that attack in, and he's an attacking manager, Maresca. That's possibly why he wasn't taken for Leicester City for that next season in the Premier League, because Leicester City would have needed that defensive-sided manager. Now, it didn't work for them, but he moved to Chelsea next. So at Leicester, obviously, he found great success for 1 season only, and then he moved to Chelsea. Now, at Chelsea, He used that 4-3-3 formation again, with also a 4-2-3-1 sitting in as well. Caicedo was their massive engine at the back. So he was, for Chelsea, he was their anchor between midfield and attack, like Leicester had. And then they had Enzo Fernandez beside him, who was actually moving box to box. That freedom for Fernandez is so important, and that's where he got his success. He also used explosive wide wingers out wide, and of course, Cole Palmer as the playmaker. So this was pretty much he pretty much had made Leicester City, this Leicester side he managed, but just at a higher level as Chelsea. Cucurella was the roamer on the left too. That's one of his biggest managerial movements for him, was having Cucurella roaming up that left side. That is where they also got a lot of success. Now, he also really liked sweeper keepers. That is why Sanchez was favoured for him, because he was a good sweeper keeper. Now, he wasn't consistent all the time, and he isn't still, but that is what he likes. Manchester City, under Pep Guardiola. Now, they were possibly the most successful side ever in the Premier League, other than possibly Manchester United. Now, Manchester City won 6 Premier League titles under Pep, a treble, 2 FA Cups, a Champions League, and overall 20 trophies in 10 years. Now that is phenomenal. How is Enzo Maresca going to be able to back this up and create success when they've already had that such good successful background? Manchester City rotated in a 4-2-3-1 with Bernardo Silva as the box-to-box midfielder and Rodri as the engine. Now, they like to drop into that back four to make a back three with the wing backs moving high. That's what Pep used quite a lot. And Nico O'Reilly is definitely one of those players who pretty much can play what Cucurella played at Chelsea. He is a roamer, but he is special because he doesn't just roam up the line. He moves anywhere. He moves into the midfield. He moves right up to the striking position. Now that is such a big, useful option, but then also can lose them at the back. Now that is why they dropped in to make that back three. Manchester City had high inverted wing backs, and Cherki this last season was their playmaker. Now they struggled at the start of the season because Cherki wasn't really in the starting side, and Reinders was more the player in that position, and possibly Foden, but they struggled in that area for the start, and they were often quite vulnerable behind their wing backs. That is where they lost games. Manchester City also have wingers that dribble a lot and are quite like to move in towards the goal, such as Doku and Semenyo, who take on the players. Now, altogether, working together, the Enzo Maresca and this Manchester City side, they will keep it relatively similar, I believe, as I said before, except my pick here is James Trafford may come into the starting side. Does that mean Donnarumma, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, will be sold? I'm not sure. I think at least one of them will be sold this summer. But Trafford may have a shot at getting that first spot here because of his feet playing ability and that sweeper keeper skill he can possess, which Donnarumma does not. Also, Bernardo Silva will be gone. Savinho is likely to be gone. Reinders and Rodri are also linked to leave. So this could be massive change in the players' situation for Manchester City. What they need is, first of all, a box-to-box midfielder who can produce what Bernardo Silva did, who is left. Now, this is a tough role to fix, and I think the only player, and Manchester City, also think the only player who can fit this role but also fit in early on is Elliot Anderson. He will be the man they are looking for this summer, and they will be putting big bits in for him. He is their main man to get, I think, this summer. They also need a right back, a solid defender at the back as well, because I don't think Matheus Nunes is a right back for me, because it's just the fact he's more of a midfielder and he likes to go high, and so often they are caught in that right back area. You do not want to be caught like that, because that is where so many opportunities came in for other teams last year. Also, wingers are a big want for Manchester City, maybe just for backup for them. Because of Savinho leaving, they'll only have Doku and Semenyo really as the players that will play on the wings. Diomande could be the man they are looking for, but I believe possibly too high a cost, and because other sides will be going for him heavily. He is wanted by so many clubs. This could be a big question whether they can get that man in, or whether they have to go for a cheap option. Also, they need a pivot engine, a midfielder, if Rodri leaves, to take that position and be able to sit back and transition the team, as Maresca likes to do with that player. Adam Wharton is a possible player to fit that criteria, or Belieber from Brighton. These are some questions they could be thinking, but also they've got to think about the cost. There are going to be so many costs this summer for Manchester City, so these might be options where they have to go for cheap options. Centre backs as well are needed for Manchester City, with Ake and Vardio possibly leaving as well. They would probably go for a cheaper option here as well. Now, my predictions, my forecast for Enzo Maresca moving into Manchester City is that this combination will work. But it will take time for him to keep the players in the system and get them working together. This is needed change for Manchester City after Pep Guardiola struggled over the last 2 seasons. Well, not struggled, but found he had to change quite a lot of what he was doing in the last 2 seasons where he was there. So this is needed so that they have we see a different Manchester City, and it's not all the same. I don't think they are going to be the Manchester City we've seen in the past. They won't be as dominant, and it could be a possibility that they drop down for a little bit under Enzo Maresca. That is why I'm predicting they come third next season. That's disappointing for them, but I think it's great for Enzo Maresca and his situation. We'll be back in a moment. onto the player spotlight. My top transfer rumour for the summer in the Premier League. Now, I believe the top transfer rumour will be Julián Álvarez to Arsenal from Atletico Madrid. They have had a failed bid for Julián Álvarez, but this man is their go-to this summer because he could revolutionise Arsenal's attack. He is needed for them to get that forward power. I think this will create Arsenal as a unstoppable side. Anthony Gordon has gone to Barcelona, and is this going to be detrimental to Newcastle United? He was their best player last season, so this could mean Newcastle are now stuck in a situation where they have to completely reset. Kieran Trippier is leaving as well from Newcastle, and they finished 12th place last year in the Premier League. So a difficult season for them, and this could mean so much and cause a lot of issues for Newcastle in this future period. Let's run under the tactics that they have been going for recently. So currently they go with a 4-3-3 with, when Voltemata has been in the side, a false 9. They have lacked quality down the wings though, and that is where they have struggled in attack. They haven't been able to put those finishing touches on that game, and those wingers are crucial for that. And also the players like Voltemata, who has struggled with form recently. They also have a lack of depth and have had a lot of injury problems recently, especially in their fullbacks region. Lewis Hall and the other man they have on the right back position, which is Livramento. These positions are being really cut down, and Dan Burn had to play there for a lot of last season. So this is going to be difficult for them. They need to, in this transfer window, make sure they get backups for these. Anthony Gordon, of course, was their playmaker. So they need a new one. They need someone who is going to possess that energy he brought to games and keep their game flowing, because they really struggled last season, and Gordon was one of their only sparks. So if he's left, what do they have now? Okay, let's go to their team breakdown. Okay, so obviously they had those injuries to the fullbacks, Hall and Livramento, and Burn had to move to left back. But also they've got their three midfield main players who have been their positives recently and are probably their most consistent players. Joel Linton, Gulmeres, and Tonali. Now, if they get injuries, they are not backed up well. That is where they are lacking as well. These guys are playmakers, but they haven't been able to have their great opportunities put in the back of the net, and that is where they are lacking up front. Elanga has been disappointing for Newcastle after they signed him last summer from Nottingham Forest, and he just hasn't lived up to expectations. Harvey Barnes is also, he's been on and off, bit of inconsistency there, and Jacob Murphy as well. So they are struggling with those wingers. They need someone new. Voltemata has also struggled to put those finishing touches on, as he is more of a ball-playing striker. He's not really a finisher. And that is possibly what they need now. Okay, so what they really need is 2 fullbacks, minimum, this summer, to replace those 2 who are playing majority of the matches but get injured often. Chauffeur is a possible transfer at left back, but possibly too much from Bournemouth, too much cost, and Metelli has been linked from Toulouse at right back, so he's a possibility there as well. They also need a backup left winger for sure, because Harvey Barnes is doing it all by himself at the moment and possibly needs breaks more often on that left wing side. Well, of course, since Anthony Gordon's left, they need a new playmaker, and the Moroccan Abdi Izalzouli from Real Betis could be exactly who they need. He is a goal-scoring and assisting machine. Perfect for what Newcastle need. Also, since Ramsdale is leaving, they'll need a backup goalkeeper for Pope. And James Trafford has been linked for this role. That could be a big transfer because it would put a lot more competition against Pope, so he would either have to perform better or be the second option, which would not be ideal for him. My predictions for Newcastle this season is that they will struggle, same as the last season, financially, despite Anthony Gordon leaving, because he will have raised funds, but there are so many positions to fill. So they will need smart spending for sure. I predict only 3 big incomings will come in, and they will have a possible downfall and reset for next season, because they have dug themselves in a bit of a hole. We'll be back. For this key battle section, I have gone with the transfer battle for Morgan Rogers. Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United are all going in for him in this transfer summer, and he is highly likely to leave. He's most likely going to play as a left winger for all 3 sides because they all lack quality in that area, except United, unless Cunha is wanted to be playing up front. Arsenal at the moment are the front runners wanting a massive window, and how this could be so big for Arsenal if they can get Morgan Rogers in. Let's see where this goes. We'll see you later. Andoni Iraola is going to Liverpool. So Liverpool are going back to Jurgen Klopp's style of football. How long, or will they ever build back to what Jurgen Klopp built? Now that is the question. Iraola has signed a 2-year contract at Liverpool, but will stay longer if this move works. And that is the big question. Will it work? This is going to be the biggest move for Iraola in his career, as he has managed Larnaca for the Greece League, Mirades from Spain's second league, Rayo Vallecano from La Liga for 3 years, and Bournemouth for the past 3 years. For managing Bournemouth, he got a 12th place in the Premier League, then a 9th place, and then a 6th place. So he showed real improvement. Now, also, the thing with Iraola is that he is very, as Semenyo said in an interview, he is very hard working and he gets the players doing a lot of work. They may be working every single day. And that is because of their high pressing style that he likes to implement, and which means a lot of work rate and a high intensity football. He likes his team to play vertical passes, always moving forward, and like Jurgen Klopp's style is a bit of organised chaos, and intensity moving forward. He will likely set up in a 4-2-3-1 with an attacking mid that likes moving forward up and near the striker. How Liverpool worked under Arne Slot was that it was a bit different. They were much more central and controlled. They, though, had their high fullbacks often caught too high and were given opportunities down that edge. Also, their midfield link often struggled, and that is where they will need to work. That link between players, because their last summer, where they signed so many massive players, was also an issue because they weren't able to get them working together. Now, with Iraola at Liverpool, I believe Kerkez will be revitalised on that left side, producing a bit of an overload down there, because he did work with Iraola at Bournemouth, and that is where he thrived. Now, they also might be quite vulnerable because of this from counter-attacks from opposition, because of their pressing style and how high they push their whole team, really. The defensive midfield players will also be players that have to have big engines. They need to be able to put in so much work because they are the main part of his system, trying to just keep pushing up forwards, but then also getting back and defending. And that is so important for Iraola's system, and it could be an area where they have to get players in there. They also, I believe, will find some creative right winger to replace Mohamed Salah. And Iraola likes working off that right edge and creating a lot of options. So, this is one of those big transfers where they need someone who is going to be able to create those options from that right wing side. They also, I believe, will want a selfless striker. Isak will need to improve in that area, but he is informed now. So, Iraola will be hoping that he can be a lot more up to what they want from him this season. Now, so altogether, what they need is a creative right winger to replace Mohamed Salah. Diomande is the big option they are looking for. Now, they may have to pay a lot for him because there are so many clubs gunning in for him. So, this may be all in or not, because if they go all in for Diomande, that means they may have to sacrifice positions behind him, and that could be detrimental to Liverpool as well. They also need a midfield engine. Now, players linked with this would be Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace, who is likely to move, and Scott from Bournemouth, who worked under Iraola and has been working under him for the past while. And he has really thrived under Iraola. He's so hard working, and that's what makes him special. I think he will fit Iraola's system really well. Also, they need a backup attacker, a striker, such as Krupi, who also worked at Bournemouth, or Wesley Barcola. Now, this backup attacker he won't want it just to be a striker, because Ekitike, yes, he's gone out till Christmas, but they will want him to be able to come back in and not be struggling for a position other than from Isaac. So they'll be hoping they have someone who can also go left wing or right wing, because they don't have many backups around that area. Also, they will possibly need more depth at the centre back and right back area. Huijsen, who also worked under Iraola, is a possible link for this, and Schlotterbeck has been linked for this position as well. My predictions now for Liverpool this next season under Iraola is that they will struggle to keep players happy, just like they did last season. This is because they have such big stars, such as Florian Wirtz, who might be playing behind Szoboszlai, because Szoboszlai is in such great form, and he's such a creative player. Florian Wirtz will have to earn his place in Iraola's system. They will have a similar identity to Klopp, though. Going back to predicting how their season will go, so I think this will work, because Liverpool's identity with Klopp was so good. And they could have won so many more titles if Pep Guardiola wasn't in the Premier League. Well, this new system for them will be a bit of change, though. So I think they will struggle this season and find they fatigue quite easily, because they haven't got used to his high intensity style. Now, so I think they will come 4th next season, possibly even lower. But can they work their way back to what they were? That is the question. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 big transfer projections of mine after big exits at their clubs. Okay, Morgan Rogers is my number 3, because he is highly likely to leave Aston Villa. So who do Aston Villa find to replace him? I believe Gibbs White will be too hard to get, after Anderson will likely be leaving Forest, so they won't want Gibbs White to leave. So I feel like Jonathan Rowe from Bologna will be the man they go for from the left. Number 2, I have Bernardo Silva leaving Manchester City, so I think, and heavily linked, Elliot Anderson will come in to Manchester City to replace Silva. And at number 1, now this is a big pick from me, Mohamed Salah is leaving, of course, as we know, Liverpool. So who is going to replace him in that right wing area? I do not think they will be able to get Diomande. So I believe Jared Bowen will, since he's been leaving West Ham, will come into that right wing position and will fit in perfectly, as he is a cheapish and a Premier League proven player for Liverpool.